Sorry about that, guys. Wrong button. Morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon, good morning, where depending where you're at in the country. Welcome to another episode of the Spotlight series presented by the Black Podcasters Association. My name is Corey Gums. I'm the founder as well as your host. If this is your first time watching, the Spotlight series is a weekly show where we highlight Black podcasters, creatives, and podcast support professionals from our online community. The goal of the show is to help raise awareness of our community members as well as highlight their unique journey within the growing medium of podcasting. But before we start with the show, please make sure you like, subscribe, tap the notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube, and help support us to keep creating content like this by buying us a coffee. You can find a link in our description. In today's episode, we would like to welcome the host of the Roundtable Talk Show, Sharifah Hardie. Excuse me. Sharifah Hardie is a business consultant, candidate for 2024 California State Senate District 33, president of the Southern California Black Chamber of Commerce, Long Beach area, as well as CEO of ITTV or Intellectual Television, and founder of the Black Guest List, as well as an influencer and a well-accomplished author. But I'll let her explain her journey and introduce to you Sharifah Hardie. How you doing, Sharifah? How's everything going today?
I am fine. I am honored to be here, Corey. It is an honor to be a guest on the show, and that is because this is a part of the Black Podcasters Association, which we desperately need. I became the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce for Long Beach area in February of this year, and people said, why are you doing that? That's racist. You shouldn't be, focused on Black people. And I said, until my people get equality, then and maybe even after that, I'm going to focus on my people. I launched the Black Guest List based on a conversation where a woman said to me, and it was a Black woman. Let me just point that out. She said, Sharifah, why do you cater towards white people? And I was really shocked because nowhere in my mind did I feel that I was catering to white people. What happened is I have a talk show. I would post on my social media. I would post on various websites that I have opportunities for people to be a guest on my show. And none of the Black people responded. I went out and I went to all these different websites to find guests for my show, and 99% of those people were white people. And so I was like, wow, and that's why I created Black Guest List, to create more opportunities for us as Black people. So I'm so, again, proud of you for looking around and seeing that there was a need for a Black Podcasters Association.
Thank you. Yeah, I have similar, especially in the beginning of this journey, I had similar experiences in regards to getting engagement from our community. So I think that's very big, and I think that's very important that we talk about these things. And I was actually looking at your website, the Black Guest List. I definitely would like to learn more about it. Maybe we can do a separate conversation about that, because we do also do a series where we call the Podcasters Toolkit, where we just highlight tools and services and stuff like that that help podcasters to find resources and extend their reach and to just improve their podcasting journey. So I would definitely like to talk to you about that later on in the future.
Absolutely. I would love to be a tool in your toolkit of resources, not just for Black Guest List, but just as an individual to be able to help new podcasters. I launched my first show, Ask Sharifah Radio, in 2009. And that was based on the fact that I built my first website in 1994. And for years, I had people who came to me and they said, Sharifah, you built your website. We want you to build our website. You're marketing your website. We want you to market our websites. And I had people who were asking me questions about being online, being on the internet, having a website, social media marketing, PR. And I said, you know what? I cannot spend my entire day sitting here answering questions. And so I launched Ask Sharifah Radio, which was an opportunity for people to call in and ask those questions. And from 2009 to date, there's never been a point in time where I haven't had some type of talk show, podcast in some form of fashion. But the Roundtable Talk Show, which is one of my current shows, I also have Ask Sharifah Videocast, where I do one-on-one interviews. But the Roundtable Talk Show is my baby. I launched that show after my run for Long Beach City Council in March of 2020. And so I always say they wouldn't give me city council, so I took the roundtable. But I am going to have a platform to have conversations, organic conversations about life and about business and what's going on in the world. And with well over 300 episodes, that's what we do every weekday at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay. So I guess let's talk more about the show. What is the your goal, your purpose, and what kind of conversations do you have on the show?
Organic. That's the only word that can sum up the Roundtable Talk Show. And I tell people in all humbleness, there is no talk show out there like the Roundtable Talk Show. You have guests, you have shows where they have multiple guests. They may be 5 guests, 10 guests. It doesn't matter. But usually all of those guests are around the same topic, the same industry, the same genre. You bring on 5 doctors, you bring on 5 hip hop artists. Well, the Roundtable Talk Show brings 5 random people on a show, and no one knows where the conversation is going to go. It could go anywhere based on what the people want to talk about. Because one of the things that I've learned, especially in a global pandemic, is that we are all basically similar. We have differences, but we're all humans. We all love to laugh, to feed our families, to talk about what's important in our lives. And so I just bring together people to have an organic conversation. They're all business owners, entrepreneurs, artists, but maybe they have a passion that they don't have the opportunity to talk about. Today's show wound up being the conversation wound up being about the creative process. So these are business owners, but one person has talks about music. One person has a spiritual retreat in Sedona, but one person was an activist and an artist. One lady helped people with cancer to find the beauty after cancer, their makeup, their hair. Another lady wrote a children's book. But guess what? In some way, they were all creatives. So we kind of started talking about the creative process, and I get bored. Since 2009, doing one-on-one interviews, you tend to ask the same questions. Hi, what do you do? What's your website? And I was like, this is so boring, And so I said, okay, well, let's, shake it up a bit. And that's what I did with the Roundtable Talk Show.
Okay. So basically people can come to your show and get different perspectives on wherever the topic goes to.
Yes, and I
That's
love
good.
the aspect of the different perspectives, because again, with a one-on-one interview, I have no option but to just agree, because that this is this person's life, this is their business, there's the point of view. But with the Roundtable Talk Show, I love to debate. I was in debate class, a debate group in high school. I'm a debater, and I love to debate just because, it's Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. And so you have an opportunity for somebody to say, you know what, I'm really passionate about this. And then somebody else to say, well, have you thought about this? Have you looked at it this way?
Right.
And all of a sudden it's a conversation, and that no one really expected, because the guests that come on my show, prior to the show, I always ask them a question. Have you either watched or listened to an episode of the Roundtable Talk Show? And there are people who say, I'm so sorry, I was busy, I didn't have time, I apologize. And I always say, there's no need to apologize to me. I just want you to know what to expect, because people don't expect the Roundtable Talk Show. They expect to say their little piece. And then there are other people who have an opportunity to rebut or to comment on and it's like, okay, some people are blown away. Like, wait a minute, why are they asking me questions, or why are they making me comments? So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. So is this what kind of format is the show? Is it just mainly video, or do you also turn that into the audio podcast portion?
Yes, it's a video show. We stream live on 8 different platforms: my social media pages, my YouTube pages, as well as my TV network, which is ITTV, Internet Intellectual Television. And then we take the audio, it's automatically converted into a podcast. And then that goes out to all of the audio podcast platforms, from Google Podcast to iHeartRadio, all of the Spotify major platforms. And what's funny and what's interesting is that we look at this medium called video, and it's so cool to be on Facebook and Facebook Live. But I would say the majority of the listeners who tune in and listen to the audio portion. Maybe they're driving their car, they're doing their morning run. So as people upgrade, I always advise them, you're doing video and that's wonderful, but please don't forget about the audio aspect.
I'm glad you said that, because when I work with clients, that's one of the things I always have to point out, because everybody wants to do video. Besides the fact that it's a bigger production cost and more time consuming, but I always say to them, like, a lot of your listeners is still going to come from the audio platforms, because a lot of times, especially these kind of conversations, I don't have to really watch. I can listen to the information that's being spread, but they're doing it while they're, like you said, driving, working, or doing other activities. So, typically when people have video shows, they tend to do the video. So I'm glad that you're coming with a different perspective, and informing people to still respect the audio portion of their strategy or their platform. So
Yes.
I think that's very big. So I know we're talking about your roundtable talk show, but what about the ITTV? Like, it's interesting that you have both that and then you have your own TV. Is a channel, a station, or
It's a network.
how would you classify? It's a network. Tell us a little experience about that, like how you got started in that, some of the positives and the negatives of, or some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Trials and tribulations of starting that aspect of your business.
Well, it hasn't been easy and it's still a work in progress. But for me, this was the third TV network that I have been a part of. We did an IPO with Punch TV Studios in 2016, where we raised about $6 million for that network. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I wanted to do was focus on production, but I didn't have control of the network. Then I worked with another television network. I was the CEO of that company, but I didn't have control because I didn't own any of the production equipment. I didn't own the production studio. And so I basically had to listen to someone else tell me when I could produce. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do this. But somehow, some way, I didn't get that TV, television, film, production, network experience out of my system. And so this year, March of 2021, I said, I want to do another television network. And I want to focus on production. And so we just produced our first show where we haven't released it, but it's called Build My Brand. And it was a fabulous, fabulous time because I said, what do you want to do? With IT, intellectual television, it's content that makes you think. And I feel, and this is just, don't cancel me online, but I feel some of the content on television right now lowers your IQ. You're like, okay, what am I watching? So I wanted to create something where people have fun, they're entertained, but they actually learn something. So with Build My Brand, we took different brands and entertainers, fitness people. We put them in a category. Then we brought in, well, a studio, and we brought in experts, and each expert taught them a different element of building their brand. And it was so much fun. It's a reality television show, but at the end of the show, their brands were that much better because they learned from the experts. And this is the content that I'm producing on ITTV.
Okay, so when can people expect to? Because that's something I would be interested in watching. When can people expect that to be
It'll
released to
be
the public?
out, released in 2022. We'll have the trailer out in a couple of days. I'm so excited for people to see it. Then we'll start marketing the show. But these are the shows I'm going to be producing, and it'll be out in 2022.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for that one and let us know because we'll let our network know as well to check
Yes.
that out because that is important information, not just for it's important information for anyone who's trying to start a product for the public to consume, right? And building your brand and podcasting is just as important, if not very important, to help you gain the listenership and the growth that you're looking to do. Because it's even though it's still in its infancy, so to speak, it's still very competitive, right? As we see in the statistics, a lot of podcasters only listen to a certain amount of podcasts and hours a week, and only a certain amount of podcasts per week. So you're vying for that position with whoever your targeted audience is to make them basically say, "Well, forget that one, listen to mine," right?
Mhm.
So it's important that we understand building the brand process and understanding the intricacies of it because it's not easy. I learned that from just even doing this venture with the community as well as my own business. I'm still learning and I'm still trying to figure out some things about my brand. So I would definitely like to look at that. So that's releasing in 2022. Are there any other shows you have lined up that we should be looking out for?
We have quite a few shows that are coming out. That one is important to me. That's my baby because I'm the host of that show. And
Okay.
before I go on to other shows, I just want to say this. I believe, and I learned this also through life and through producing that show, is that you have an incredible brand. You have an amazing brand. And part of just having a great brand is being clear on who your brand is and what your brand does. And then continuing to push that brand, through social media, through marketing, through advertising, through events, through different platforms. But what I found, and I found this clearly on the show Build My Brand, is that you would think it's so easy to determine or decipher what a person's brand is. And I met so many people and I'm like, I don't even know what you do. Like, what is it that you do?
Yeah.
What are you about? What is going on here? You have people that do 15 different things and you're like, I'm so confused. And what people don't understand about building a brand is that when people get confused or when people are unclear, they don't call you and say, "Hey, Corey, I'm trying to figure out your brand." They just go somewhere else. So that goes back to what you were saying about, the competition in podcasts and the competition in business and the competition is in life, is that if they don't get what they want in one place, they're going to go somewhere else. So my
Exactly.
biggest tip and my biggest takeaway is just really just be clear on your brand and be consistent and keep working that brand over and over and over again. Because I tell you, when I launched my first talk show as Sharifah Radio in 2009, I did marketing for that show for a month. And I told everybody, and I called on my friends, and I was so excited, and my family, and I posted on every social media site, and I put it out there. And you know how many people showed up to watch that one show live? One.
Right.
One. Right. And my little heart was broken. I was hurt. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I'm a failure. Nobody comes to watch this show. But over time, what I began to see is that most of the listens came in the archives. And that first show, which had one live listener, over time had thousands and thousands and thousands of listens. And I was like, oh my God, the magic and the money is in the archives. And so from that point on, making that realization, I don't care if no one showed up to do that show. It would be like I'm at, the Apollo in front of this huge audience, and I gave the best show of my life because I knew that people would listen to that show later. Another experience I had, I've been going out supporting a lot of the Black-owned businesses, and my friend was at an event in Leimert Park here in California, and she had her table and everything. So I just went to support her. And so I get there, and she tells me, she says, I enjoy your show. I just love listening to your show. And I said, you watch my show, you listen to my show? She was like, girl, yeah. She was like, I don't catch it live, but anytime I get a chance or anytime I get a moment, I tune in and I watch your show. So as podcasters, we often don't understand the reach that we have, the people who are watching, because we look at the numbers. And so often we look at the numbers right then when we're live, when we're on. And guess what? Maybe that person, my parents listen to my mom listens to my show after she gets off work. She doesn't get off work until 4 p.m. I do my show at 8 a.m. So people listen to the shows. So I just wanted to give you that information. One of the other shows that we're producing on the network that I'm excited about is a friend of mine who does feng shui.
Okay.
And she does it for homes, for offices, for business, for love, for finances. And so it's called Feng Shui Dawn. And she's a really interesting lady in Orange County, California. And we're following her day to day as she goes out to these different homes and the techniques that she uses and how she teaches people to get better love and attract better love in their life, better finances in her life. That's one of the shows that we're doing. I mean, it's just different ideas. And whenever I have an idea, I just tend to kind of run with it.
Okay. So how does how I think one of the biggest questions I have is how do you manage your time? How do you manage all of these things? Because I know like with a lot of podcasters wear many hats, myself included with my business. Typically I'm usually the one that does everything. So and it's hard to sometimes stay focused and manage everything. And sometimes you forget. What are some like how do you manage this? Because this is a lot and it's a lot to produce a show.
Um, yes and no, Corey. I believe in automation.
Okay.
So 99% of everything that I do is automated. If I can't automate it, then I don't know if I want to use that service. Like Calendly. That's my number one tip.
Mm.
If you are operating your show without Calendly, I hate to say this, but you are doing it wrong.
And it's Black owned.
Right. If Calendly went out of business, you get that last show like this is Sharifah Hardie signing off. You know what I mean? Because Calendly is my best friend. People can come and they can schedule themselves for the show. I don't have to do much of anything. So that's why I love Calendly. I automate everything. I would like to be able to do a little bit less when I'm producing the show, because what happens is if you are doing too much and you're not using Calendly or a system like that,
Right.
what you will come to the show and you will be tired. and it will show in your demeanor, it will show in your presentation, and people will not tune in to watch your show. And so I always make sure I get plenty of rest, like any other job. Podcasting is a job. Don't remember back in the day when we actually had jobs and we had Saturday, Sunday off? What did you do on Sunday? You'd be like, you know what, let me go to sleep at 8 o'clock because I got to go to work tomorrow. It's the same idea with podcasting. If you don't
Right.
take podcasting serious and you don't understand that podcasting is a job, you're not going to get the results that you need from the show. So I think primarily for me is automation and understanding that I'm the talent. I show up and host the show. That's the extent of really what I want to do with the show.
I think that's really big because if um I know I do mostly podcast development, right? This is the most I've ever done in the space of having my own podcast, something like that, right? But one of and I'm also a web developer, so I'm an engineer, so I'm always like you say, trying to automate, trying to figure out how to make the process more efficient. And one of the things I do, because there are a lot of podcasters for whatever reason, mainly from what I see is because of access to resources, they don't think about building their team. And then it becomes this thing where they hold very close to their chest, not realizing that I need to figure out ways to make this more efficient so that I can concentrate on being the talent, on being the one that's prepared to bring that energy. Because I mean, sometimes even doing these shows for me, because this is not, I always wanted to be in the back end of things, not in the front side of it. I have to psych myself up. It takes me about a good hour to get myself mentally prepared to do this some days, and it's like, okay, Corey, you gotta set yourself up. You gotta go. It's hard, and I one thing I've learned since I started doing this is like, wow, I will never say anything bad about people who do this on a daily basis. Typically, you're like, oh, you're talking about like this is hard, but that's because I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, and I'm very I don't want to say anal retentive, but I'm very like, okay, let me double check, triple check, quadruple check the equipment, make sure there's no issues going on. I check my router, I check I'm going down my checklist. So it does take a lot, and you don't even realize how mentally draining that can be. Just the anxiety or the pressure, how that can be when you're working on these projects. So it is important that we either automate. And I love Calendly, and I even support it even more because it was started by a black man. So I'm like in the tech space, which we already know it's really hard for a lot of black apps to get traction in that space. Um, and then they added the automation stuff too. And I was just telling somebody a story the other day. Like, I'm sitting here doing for this show, I do all these things, and I'm like, why am I not using the automated part of Calendly to do everything? Why am I out here physically doing all this stuff? So this past weekend, that's what I took time to do, is just set all of that back up. So it's important that we recognize that. What are some tips for people to automate? Like, I know you mentioned Calendly, but what are some other ways that they can do if they can't afford those kind of services? Do you have any recommendations?
Okay, well, first of all, again, not to contradict you, Corey, but I don't believe in not being able to afford anything at all, especially something like Calendly, which is like $10 a month.
Mhm.
Because what someone may say they cannot afford, it will cost them in the long run. It will cost you in time and
Yes.
energy. It will cost you in your show not being successful. I love Johnny Ray, who made the comment, and he made the quote, "The magic and the money is in the
I saw
archives."
it, yeah.
It definitely is. The magic and the money is in the archives. But I'm gonna give you another place where the money and the magic is, and that's in your newsletter, right? So you talk about automation. Calendly integrates with MailChimp. So again, I have 5 shows per week. I have 5 guests per show. That's 25 people per week, 100 people per month that I'm speaking to. Why would I not be able to obtain those people in a newsletter and reach out to those people? So often there are places that we can use to make money that we haven't even thought about, that we can just simply integrate Calendly with MailChimp. Now those people who are signing up for your show are now added to your newsletter, and you can reach out to those people in your newsletter with other offers. That's why I do 5 shows a week. That's why I do 5 guests a day, so I can get in front of as many people as possible. But it's the automated aspect. If I had to manually sign up all these people to my newsletter, they would not get signed up. I can tell you that right now. I would try at the beginning, but then no, they would not get signed up. So I love Calendly. I love MailChimp. These are things that make life easier. Another non-podcast related tip that I can give that to a certain extent is podcast related, but Fiverr. If you're not on Fiverr, you are missing out. Fiverr, Fiverr. Fiverr, I got on Fiverr maybe 10, 12 years ago. Fiverr changed my life because I can
Mhm.
get things that were for a business that used to cost hundreds of dollars for $5. So again, when someone says, I can't afford this, okay, well, get you a great logo. You can get a logo for $5 for your show. Get you a great flyer for your show. You can get that done for $5. Do you have a great intro? Do you have a great outro? Have you created a video to promote your show? Fiverr. You can get all of these things done on Fiverr. So these are the things and the items that I think people should take into account when starting their podcast, as opposed to saying, well, you know what, I would really like a great podcast, but I don't have the Breakfast Club kind of money. I don't have the Breakfast Club kind of money.
Right.
But I can take $10 or $20 or $50 here or there in order to come up with a great podcast.
So basically, you have to invest in your show if you want to get the success that you want. I mean, I drive that. I make those recommendations. So I use Fiverr myself. Haven't had the best of luck sometimes, but I did because of that. I learned my lesson, and I do have like a way I scrutinize certain talent on
Yeah.
there just to
You
make
have to
sure that I'm
learn
getting the right
though.
person. And it might cost you $10, $20 to do it. And you get a little mad, upset, and then you close. You let that go and you move on and you
No, I've
approach
never
your
lost
workers.
any money. This is weird
I did
because
on a
no, but let me
logo.
tell you why. Because Fiverr always gives you your money back. And now I have had over 1,000 orders that I've done, and about 100 of them I have canceled. And I
Okay.
use this like a weapon. Like if I'm not happy, I go right to Fiverr, do the resolution center, and Fiverr will give you your money back, and I'll just find someone else. But I'm very careful to
Okay.
look at the amount of stars. If they don't have 5 stars, I don't care if they have 4.9 stars. No, I need 5 stars, and this cannot be your first gig. This has to be like the 1,000 gig and 5 stars, or I am not ordering from you. I'm very, very blessed to have been so successful. Even my graphic designer, I met him about, I don't know how many years ago, but he did one gig for me. He came back the next day and he said, Sharifah, man, no, he says, ma'am, he calls me ma'am, do you have any more work for me? And I said, no. And he said, okay, thank you, ma'am. The next day he came back, he said, ma'am, do you have any more work for me? I said, no. He said, okay, thank you, ma'am. He came back the next day. He said, ma'am, do you have any more work for me? I said, well, God darn, I'm going to find something for you to do. You know what I mean? People in America, they don't show up for work every day. 250 gigs later, he's still doing all my graphic design work.
Oh, that's dope. I think that's important too. Building a team and finding great talent. I I could have. I forgot about the when I was on Fiverr. I forgot about the resolution thing. I just took. It wasn't. I mean, to me, it wasn't a lot of money at the time. I just took the L and just like, okay, I learned. Well, for me, even though I say I lost money, I still learned my lesson, right?
Mhm.
I kind of have the similar policy to you. I say 4.8, but 4.8 and up, and I do look at how many jobs you do. I literally spent like I would go like spend a half an hour just going through the comments, seeing one, not only the complaints, but how you interact with those people. Because I understand some people are just gonna never be satisfied and complain.
Right.
But I see how you interact, and then that might help me determine on who I'm gonna work with. But Fiverr also helped me realize for my business that I need to have at least 5 key members on my team as well, with certain talents, or maybe one or two talents that I might have to utilize. So like I have several editors. I have I some of the stuff that I do myself now, I can facilitate it out to people who I've scrutinized, trust, and had open communication. And it's makes me more productive, right? I can focus on the things I really need to. So I think that's important. You dropped a lot of gems in this interview, but what would you say was like a learning during your journey as well with your shows and your production company, I mean, and your TV station and everything? What would you say was like a learned lesson, right? A mistake you made or something that you really learned a hard lesson from during your journey?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I think people ask a lot of questions, but let me just say this. Um, I think I have learned not the hardest lesson is that I have given up too early, especially in podcasting, especially with podcasting. I got an email the other day, it was spam, but nonetheless, somebody sent me an email that said most podcasters quit after their third episode. And we were discussing that on an episode of the Roundtable Talk Show, and somebody said it was 10, somebody, but the whole point is that most people do a couple of episodes and go, you know what, this is not for me. Nobody's listening, nobody's watching, nobody's tuning in. I'm not making any money. It's costing me more money than it's making me. And then they just give up. And so I've learned to just stick with it, to go, I've done over 300 episodes of the Roundtable Talk Show. And the response that I have now was not the response that I received at 5 episodes or 10 episodes or 100 episodes in. It takes time for people to share a show. And it also takes time before they make referrals, because they don't want to refer, to the spotlight and then their friends go tomorrow and the spotlight is no longer on the air. It
Yeah.
takes time. And so often I've canceled shows or stopped doing shows when I'm like, you know what, maybe that show really had legs. So for me, the biggest lesson has been just giving a show time to kind of get out there and permeate into the market.
It's interesting you said that because I was sitting here thinking about I don't Netflix had a new series called Cowboy Bebop that came out. A
Mhm.
very popular anime series that they turned into a live action series. I had never watched the anime before, and then I started watching it over the past couple of weeks because I wanted to watch the live series. So I just wanted to get, I did that as a background, but because they got so much negative feedback from just from a small contingent of fans that watched the show, they wound up canceling it. And I was thinking about, I was like, they should have really given it maybe another. And Netflix is notorious for this, right? They'll have a series, it becomes very popular, or it has a very strong cult following, right? And then they'll cancel it, and it creates a problem. Like, and that is a problem. And that's one reason why I think why I don't watch Netflix shows. I don't invest in Netflix shows like I used to. So I think that's very important. One of the biggest things I, as a podcast listener, is you get attached to somebody's podcast, and then all of a sudden it just ends. No
Right.
abruption, no message saying it's still on the directory, it's still showing up in the feed. And pod fade, if you as you get to know me and you see in the group, one of my biggest things that I've learned over the past year is pod fade is like the white elephant in the room. Everybody talks about how to make a successful podcast and how to get in it, but nobody's addressing the issues that lead to pod fade. So the fact that you had a discussion about that on your show, I love it because you rarely hear anybody really attack that issue, and it's more than just here's what you need to do to have a successful podcast. There's a lot more to that conversation. So I'm glad that that is definitely a great advice and a great lesson to learn from. Um, and I guess it goes in line with what you're saying. Like you can afford, you just got to figure out how to afford it or create other streams of income to help you afford it. And I always tell people this is an expensive hobby, right?
Mhm.
You have to think about that before you get started. There's just, even on a minor scale, there's just certain things you have to pay for. You can't. It's not
Yes.
like drawing where you just take some scrap paper in your house and you just draw it and recycle that paper. You have to. There's a minimum investment you have to make. So it's very important we drive that point home, um,
But
especially in our
also,
community.
yes, but also think about, and I tell this not to cut you off, I apologize, but
Oh,
you're making such an excellent, excellent point. But this is one of the things that I tell people is if you want to do a podcast, don't wait until you get to 20 episodes in to decide how you're going to monetize your podcast. The monetization of your podcast should be considered right
right
before you
away.
launch the show. Like the Roundtable Talk Show, I have commercials. I stopped for a commercial break, and then people have advertisers and guests have an opportunity to play a 30-second or a 60-second commercial during the Roundtable Talk Show. And if you understand television, people in television will tell you it's not about the show, it's about the commercials. Shows are created for advertisers. They're created just so they can play commercials or have some product placement during the show. That's just like if you had a product that you were interested, somebody could watch your show and they could see you drinking that product during the entire spotlight. People don't have to necessarily know that Big John paid you $2,000 to drink, this wonderful new drink during your entire show, but you and your bank account know that you
Right.
got paid to drink this show. So what are the elements that you have in your show that you can monetize? For me, my commercial advertising is relatively inexpensive. It's $25 per 30-second commercial. It's $40 per 60-second commercial. But guess what? Calendly only cost me $15. With one commercial in 30 days, I've
Cover the
already
cost.
paid for Calendly.
Right.
So
Cover the
I'm just
expenses.
saying, take those things into consideration when you are launching your show.
We're there, Sharifah, because if anybody that's watching this or that watches this and had ever had a conversation with me inside of the community one on one, that is the thing I tell them. I call it the NASCAR. I can say you can NASCAR your video if you, especially you have video, you can NASCAR your show, right? So like that's going to be advertising space. Now that you bring it up, that blank wall behind me, I'm going to figure that out. But I tell them like, just think of NASCAR. The cars, every single inch of that car, no matter how big or small, right, has a sponsor on there. And it's the same thing. Drinking a cup, and I think I always point out to people like if you see a bottle, like a bottle of water, and have the label facing a different direction, that's because that company didn't pay for that bottle to be in that shot. And one of my friends told me that's what he taught me. He's like in the movies, whenever you see something, it's there for a reason, except for the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, but everything else is there for a reason, right?
Right.
And somebody paid to have that there. And a great example of what you say is the MCU Avengers movie.
Mhm.
Towards the end, when they were tearing up New York City, it was perfect product placement. There was a part where Farmers Insurance had a banner while they were tearing up New York City, and I was like, that was just so perfect. And I know they paid a lot of money for that
Right.
because it was like here you have all this damage is going on, and here you have a big advertisement for an insurance company right there smacking you dead in your face. So it's important that we understand these things, and it's important for a lot of our community members because that is one of the biggest questions you see in the podcasting space. When can I monetize? How do I monetize? And sometimes, like you said, it's as simple as me just drinking something on camera and getting paid for it.
Right.
So that's really great advice. I mean, I feel like this was more like a tutorial from Sharifah than it was about Sharifah, but
That's what I
I,
do. Ask Sharifah. That's the Ask Sharifah brand. I'm trying to
but I
help
mean,
you.
I guess it shows people like who you are, what you're about, and what your journey in this space has been. It's been mainly about educating and having those really good conversations. I like the roundtable idea. I like the idea of what you say, organic conversation, where you just have people from different angles, different walks of life come in and you talk about a subject and you actually have an engaging conversation about it. Sometimes those are the best conversations, right?
Oh
And
yeah. You
you learn a
learn.
lot from that. So I really appreciate that. I'm gonna I know your time is limited, but I want to give you opportunity. I know you're running for office for 2024. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Um,
I know this
yeah.
is kind of sidebar, but I got to give you the opportunity to do it.
No, it's fine. I appreciate the opportunity to just be on the show. So anything that I can discuss, I am running for Senate in 2024. But everything I'm doing right now is I tell people all roads lead to Senate. All roads lead to Senate because this is me campaigning. This is me getting my name out there and letting people know what I'm passionate about. But the things that I'm passionate about haven't changed in any of the years. I'm passionate about job creation. We have to be able to create more jobs with a living wage so that people can be able to support their families. We have to be able to clear up this homeless issue that's all over the world. One, especially here in California, one things that people don't know is there are a lot of other states that will give you a free bus ticket to California, because at least you literally won't die in California. You go sleep on the beach, you'll be all right in the morning. In other places you don't have that same opportunity. So there's homelessness, lack of jobs. People are going through it, especially after a global pandemic. So I just want to be the solution, part of the solution and not, a part of the problem. So that's really why I'm running for Senate in 2024 here in Long Beach.
Okay, and before we get into that, because I want people to be able to, I'm going to assume that you're open to being guests on other people's podcasts and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I would
Talk
love
about
to.
your
I'm looking for
platform.
more.
I'm going to get into that part, but the one question I want to ask you, I know you become a recent member of our community. How do you feel? How has it been since you joined our community? What value has it brought to you, the Black Podcasters Association? What has it brought for you?
I love it. I really love what you're doing, and I'll allude to what I said earlier about your brand. You do your brand well because one of the things that I noticed about you and I like about you, and we have became Facebook friends as well, not just the group, is that you do exactly what I recommend and you do it naturally and organically as you ask questions. That's one of the things that I do on the Roundtable Talk Show, because I ask people the question a lot of times when there are multiple guests. I'll have a statement and I'll say, well, Corey, what do you think about that? And then all of a sudden you'll give your opinion. Most times in most people's lives, they never ever had anyone ask their opinion. Most people, in fact, had the exact opposite. There was someone in their life who told them to shut up, sit down, nobody cares what you think. And
Mhm.
so in your group, in the Black Podcasters Association, you ask questions that lead to conversation. You were asking the question this morning, which I read, and I was like, I might respond, I might not. But it was the question about charging for podcasts. And this is one of those conversations that I've had over the years, because on my Ask Sharifah videocast and podcast, I charge for that appearance. It's a one-on-one appearance. And people have said to me, they said, Sharifah, that's wrong. You shouldn't charge people to be a guest on your show. But you know who tell me that? The most type of people who tell me that, Corey?
The ones without the money.
No, no, no. The publicists and the PR representatives. These are
Oh,
the people who have are strongly, adamantly against charging their clients to be a guest on the show. And I'm like, okay, but wait a minute. You charge them to talk to me.
yeah.
See, there was that pause when people get that. I don't care what you think, because you just charge them $2,500 to talk to me, to have me ask them questions. So that's the value of your time. Your value is in going out and getting these podcast appearances for your clients. But so you can take my time, and I have to offer my time to your clients who paid you for free. No, I'm not. So other people, if y'all feel bad or feel guilty or whatever, I don't, because I began to understand not only the value of my time, but my reach, the amount of people that listen and tune in. There's a value to that. And so no, I'm not doing it for free. So I love the fact that you ask for questions in the group and people can talk about, because so often when we're starting out, not only as podcasters, but entrepreneurs, we feel alone. We feel like there's no one we can talk to. Who can we ask these questions from? But you are amazing. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I mean, for me, I try to take my own experiences with stuff. Like, for instance, in the tech space, when I graduated from school, I was trying to find a mentor, someone who could help guide me through that path and with my career. And it was like it was hard to find a place to ask questions, and especially from as a black man who's in the tech space, it was really hard because it's not a lot of walk into these events and these rooms and stuff. It's not a lot of representation. And the flip side of it is not a lot of my friends do it. I have one friend who I can go and have an actual conversation about coding and stuff with, right? So it makes it complicated. And I'm like, well, it's the same thing in the podcast space. And I just genuinely like to ask questions. I like to
Mhm.
learn. Like that question I asked in the group this morning, there is a conflict with me. I was even told with this show I should be, considering charging people to be on here and stuff like that. I think one of the biggest issues is like, what is your intentions, right? When you start these platforms, what is the purpose of it? For me, it was like, well, the dilemma is, and he knows who he is. He's probably watching. You planted this bug in my ear, and now I'm sitting here like, But originally, when I started this was for the members of the group, and this was just a vehicle that I saw as something for the group to benefit from, for being a part of the community and be involved in the community. And then it becomes the dilemma, the moral, I don't want to say moral, but the dilemma of, do I take that into consideration, or do I just stay true to what the original purpose was? Not saying that I don't think members in the group shouldn't have to pay for some of these investments, because this is an investment. This is a marketing vehicle. This is basically free branding and stuff, or, free marketing for you guys. But the dilemma, and I think a lot of podcasters have that, because you do see a lot of that talk about the debate about guest paying, and should they pay or should they not pay? So
But here's the thing, though. I have two shows. The Roundtable Talk Show is my baby. It's the one that everyone loves, but it's absolutely free.
right,
It's booked through February. So if you want to wait until February, then more power to you. Now, also, it has 5 guests. Ask Sharifah Videocast, the one that has a fee, you can come on today if you wanted to. Go online, asksharifa.com, and book you a spot. It has more availability because people are paying for that. That's
Right.
that's number one. But the other aspect of the whole moral dilemma is that, okay, let's take that dilemma away. Say for instance, this what you want this to be is of service to people, and you want this to, assist everybody in the group. Okay, then maybe do another show, which is a show that people can pay for. But there are different opportunities for people. You don't have to
Mhm.
do everything for free. And it reminds me of one interview I did with a shaman. Her name was Shaman Isabella. She's a wonderful friend of mine, Orange County, California. And this was years ago on Ask Sharifah Videocast. And a lot of my friends are psychics or prophetesses or mediums or whatever. And they always say, Sharifah, I see you speaking in front of large crowds. I see you, you're going to be at the forum. You're going to talk to all these people and you're going to have lots and lots of money. And so I was in the mood that day when we went to do the show. And I was like, yeah, people always see me making all this money. Now, I don't even know if I want the money. And she literally, Shaman Isabella, gave me a lecture. And she said to me, she said, Sharifah, just think about all the good you can do with that money. Think about all the families you can feed and the farms you can buy, and all. She had a list of what could be done with this money. And so
Right.
I live by the philosophy. I truly live by the philosophy that I am no good to anyone broke. Period. I'm no good to anyone broke. So if you truly, in your heart's true desire is to be of service, you're no good to anyone broke. You can't get the word out about Black Podcasters Association. You can't market it. You can't get the press you need. You can't create everything you need. You can't get the equipment that you need without money. We as a
Right.
people have to get away from that idea that money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. If you're not doing it for the money, and you have a true desire to help people, the money will come. But don't feel that you have to push the money away because it's like, oh, well, I just want to be a nice guy. Okay, well, you might go broke being a nice guy.
I don't push the money away. But I appreciate this. I really appreciate it. Let's talk about how one, people can have you come on their show, but also how can they follow your show and learn more about what you do. So I know I have your website is asksharifa.com.
Yeah.
Want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yes, AskSharifah.com is my consulting website. You can reach me on the website, or you can just send me an email directly at info@AskSharifah.com. I would love to do more appearances. I love to help. I love to talk, as you can tell. That's why my whole motto is let's talk. Let's talk about it. Whatever it is, I believe, and that's part of my Senate race too, is that change begins with a conversation. Right? You have to be able to talk about it. So AskSharifah.com, you can contact me on AskSharifah.com. You can schedule an appearance on one of my shows, Ask Sharifah Videocast and Podcast, or on the Roundtable Talk Show.
Can people like if they want to come on your show for the roundtable, can they come with also topic ideas, or is that something that's just that's already predetermined?
No, I don't. It's an organic conversation. But if
Okay.
someone comes and they have something that they would like to discuss, they kind of just start the conversation. And if we wind up talking about that for an hour, we will. If not, we'll go into a different direction. But I just love the fact that it's organic.
You know what? I'm going to sit here and tell everybody that in the association, check out the roundtable, because so you can get a feel of how these conversations go, because it might be a format that you might want to incorporate into your podcast as well. So make sure you check it out. I caught a little bit this morning before while I was getting everything set up. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to catch some more of these episodes. I'll probably go
Thank
back in your archives and see what you were talking about, see what grabs me and what doesn't. But I like those kind of conversations. I like to debate too, so um, you'll see that on my Facebook page. I like to
I
debate and
saw. I did see that.
start some conversations and antagonize some people. But they can find you on the Talk Table show on Facebook, right? You have your
Yes.
page for that,
Yes.
as well as you have your Instagram page.
Yes.
I have Sharifah Hardie, but I don't know if you have another one that you want
No,
you check
that's
out.
Sharifah Hardie.
Okay. Well, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. You gave us a lot of insight. Not only just your advice help people, but it also gives insight into who you are and how you think. And I think people need to really be understand that part. Sometimes what they say is not about the messenger, it's about the message. But
Yes.
sometimes that message will show you where a person's frame of thought is coming from. It also if you read between the lines, will tell you their experiences and stuff like that. So when you guys watch this, make sure, I think this is gonna be one of those episodes that's gonna get replayed a lot. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming on here and telling us your story and about what you do. Do you have
Thank
any last words
you.
you want to say before we end this?
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of what you're doing with the Black Podcasters Association. Just thank you. Thank you for everyone who tuned in, who watched the show live, for their support. And I think that's the most important thing, is that we continue to support each other. I also love to invite everyone and anyone who wants more media or podcast opportunities to join me on the blackguestlist.com.
Okay. And we're gonna, you know what, we're gonna definitely talk again about, having you come on and talking about the blackguestlist.com, because I did check that out and I think it's a great idea. But that's gonna be for another show.
Thank
um,
you.
but I'll reach out to you after this. Uh,
Okay.
so we're just gonna wrap up, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for checking out the spotlight. Make sure you tune into our next show coming up this Friday, December 17th at 8 p.m., where we will be spotlighting another one of our Black Podcasters Association community members, Raphael. He's the host of the White Label American podcast. And before you go, please make sure you like, subscribe, tap the notification bells if you're watching on our YouTube channel, and definitely help us support to create the content that you see here by buying us a coffee. If you'd like to learn more about the Black Podcasters Association or join our official Facebook group, make sure you check out the links in our bio or in our description, depending on what platform you're watching. And you can also head over to our website, blackpodcastersassociation.com, and sign up for our newsletter. So with that said, again, thank you, Sharifah. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll definitely be in touch.
You too. Thank you.